All right, St. James Academy, parents and community, welcome to episode 2, the second part of our first lesson to the freshmen on philosophy, the parental primer, if you will. If you recall in episode 1, the last time we met, we talked about what is the purpose of school, and we spent a lot of time talking about two different definitions of freedom. So this time we're going to continue defining our terms, which is a big part of philosophy, and we're going to dig into two terms, school and education. This episode will look at how these terms connect to the study of philosophy, how we can center this on developing our habits of mind, understanding of reality, and discovering truth. We'll also discuss the immediacy of the need for teaching philosophy, especially to ninth graders. The end of this video is pretty awesome, both Dr. Rapp in the classroom and Mr. D'Amico at the round table. So enjoy, and we'll see you on the back end of the video.
Yeah. So. Like the idea of school that you'll hear in a lot of other places is school is meant for college and career preparation, period. College and career readiness, you'll hear that in a lot of places. And our claim is that if you put first things first, you will absolutely be ready for college and career. There's no doubt about it, and we have abundant evidence to show that we have great college students and great employees coming out of St. James Academy. But you can become fully human by putting first things first. You can be set free in a different way by not making the second things first, by keeping these first things first. And so some words that led to the language we use about school, one is schola in the Greek, and that actually is a word that meant leisure, and the kind of leisure of talking about the highest things with your friends. It became basically synonymous with philosophy. It's a type of, that's where we get school from, and that's kind of what the ancient idea of school was, where you would get together with people you care about and talk about the most important things. And school won't always be that every moment of the day here at St. James Academy, but we want it to be that at least sometimes.
And if you think I'm making this up out of thin air, I'm going to give you two words. You can write these down, but you don't have to. Two words that might sound familiar. The first one is schola. This is the Greek word where we get school. Okay? Schola. The word schola, you don't have to write this one down. Actually, you don't have to write anything down, but if you want to, you can. It means rest, leisure, and one other funny word, philosophy.
And then the Latin word where we get education is educare, and it means to train or mold. And that is a very important idea to understand deeply. What are you being molded into? If the point of education is to be molded, what are you being molded into? Is it into a economic cog, something that's going to be really good for the economy? Okay, well, what does that do to me? Or is it to be molded into a key that fits a lock, right? And if all of reality is this very complex and intricate lock, and I'm a key that's going to go through a key shaper, right? Will I fit, and will it unlock something really beautiful? Those are two different ideas. So we're proposing that you are being molded to fit reality. All of the cosmos, from the angels, from that which, the nature of things which is invisible, to the material world that we can see and touch and taste. You are meant to fit in a certain space, a certain spot there, and not just into something that's helpful or useful, but something that is.
You might think of it this way. It was explained to me once. It's actually in a book by a Catholic philosopher by the name of Joseph Pieper. He says, consider the difference between an environment and the world. And what he means by environment, I mean, consider the two. Which one's bigger? We'd say world is bigger than just your environment. Now, an animal, and this is why this becomes so helpful to compare the humans with the animals. An animal just sees only the slice of the world that matters to it. Mm-hmm. So if I'm, go back to my eagle example, right? If I'm an eagle, all I really care about is those things which I am hunting in this particular limited geographic space in which I'm living. Sure. I need my nest, I got my young, I got my daily necessities. That's an environment. You can think of it like a habitat. Mm-hmm. The habitat is just a very limited slice of the whole world. Now, humans are animals. We also have an environment. We have daily needs. We have our grocery store. We have our home. We have our lawn that we need to mow. We have our things that directly, we have my job. We have everything that needs for that. However, the thing that if we were just like that, we would just be animals. Yeah. What makes us human and different than the eagle is that we can see and think of not just our environment, but the entire world. We can think of things that we cannot see. We can consider things we cannot see. We can consider things that do not actually pertain to our immediate daily grind. Mm-hmm. That is what makes us human. Mm-hmm. So, freedom for what? Freedom for being human. But that means the capacity to step out of our daily grind and consider the bigger picture. That's philosophy. So to connect this then back to what Dr. Rapp just said, is that if I say that school is just for my job, what I've just said is I'm just for my environment. Mm-hmm. Now, I have an environment. I need an environment. I actually do need a job, and I do need to think about that. But if I just merely stopped at that, I am just living like an animal. We're created as humans. It's different.
Two things that came out of what you guys just said. You talk about molding. Mm-hmm. Molding means something has to exist. Mm-hmm. That we aren't adding to it. Mm-hmm. We aren't like top down, someone telling you what you have to be, or what. And we're not loading you up with skills and information, but it's there, and we're shaping and molding it. Which is a different way of thinking things. A lot of times kids think, well, you're telling me everything, and I need to absorb it. When you're saying you're actually drawing it out and shaping it. And the second thing I just forgot.
Well, the first one, I'll just say, he's used this analogy before. It's like lifting weights. Yeah. What lifting weights does for your body, so studying philosophy or the higher things does for your mind. Yeah. It sharpens it and strengthens it by pushing against something, but it's not putting muscle on. I mean, and we say that, but that's not what we really mean. It's growing the capacity that lives within, and feeding that capacity so that it can grow and be stronger.
And something else you said combined with what you just said, this idea of a reality, and we are conforming to it. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more about that idea?
Not briefly. I'll do my best to be brief, but that's an entire other question and branch of philosophy, and that's the hard part, is figuring out what bite of the elephant are we going to take right now. Right. But it is maybe the bottommost question that we're facing, which is this: is there a reality independent of me and you that I can know with certainty or not? Or another way to put it, it is the point of life to figure out what is and then conform myself to it, to find where I fit into it? Or is the point of life to make up inside of me what is and then live life as I wish? That's really the question we see playing out in front of us in our teenagers' lives.
But the reason I'm in here talking to you as 14-year-olds is that literally everything that I've said is under question in your life and in your world. Guys, some people live at a time and a place that is at a critical juncture. You're those people. You 14-year-olds, the world is going to be different by the time you graduate high school than it is right now. It's going to be different by the time you're 25 than it is right now. Because there are powers, forces, technology that have never existed in the world and are shaping people's realities. People have argued about things like, what is the nature of reality? You say you fit, I say you don't. We don't fit in reality. We're just a byproduct spinning in a dark cosmos and then lights out eventually. Pretty sad, but people believe that. And there are people who say, you know what, that other kind of freedom is actually BS. There is no excellence. There is no standard of goodness that you should try to achieve. You make the goodness. If you don't like it, make your own way. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not good enough. Don't let anybody tell you that you need to change. That's just somebody who doesn't want you to be free. And you know what's awesome, guys, is now, where we live, the time we're in, is that you don't need anyone. Not a single person. You can create your own reality. with a computer and an internet hookup. You don't like the world? Live in the metaverse. You don't like your job? You don't like your body? Let's start there. Create an avatar. Live this way. We finally have the power to act out on ideas that have been simmering below the surface for a very long time. And it is in your lifetime, that this will be decided. It is in the next 10 years that people will figure out whether we want to pursue those ideas, that reality isn't objective, that reality is completely moldable, and that the consequences of not molding it to you are far worse than anybody could possibly imagine. And all those people who are saying you should mold yourself to reality are actually the oppressors who want to hold you back. They don't want you to be free. That will be decided in your life, and you will have to choose.
These are the two kinds of freedom, incidentally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I've used this before, and I stole it from Natalie Garza, one of our teachers, but she talks about going whitewater rafting. And she says the first rule of whitewater rafting is you bend to the river doesn't bend to you. And what we're proposing is you bend to life doesn't bend to you. And that's a fairly radical idea.
Yeah, and if you consider, compare that to the idea, this will sound strange to even speak of it this way, but you'll see its implication. Think of the idea of virtual reality. Mm-hmm. Think of the idea of the metaverse, or things where I create a virtual image of myself via social media. I am involved in a crafting of a persona, and I can pick and make reality what I want. Mm-hmm. But that's a very modern idea, and we think, well, why, how could it be any different? And the ancient way says something else. No, the truth is not something you invent. Truth is something you submit to. And if I refuse to submit to it, it'll actually be me that breaks.
And that might actually be the perfect point to bring this to a close, because I think you asked at the beginning, why now?
Yeah, why not?
Why now? We've had 500 years of philosophy that have led to these questions. But the technology has caught up to where the practical implications of these questions can now actually be lived out in a very different way than ever before. The question of what is real, right? That used to maybe just be something that played out in a philosophy department at universities. But now, actually, you can create a whole different reality. And
we're not just talking about virtual technology. We're talking about all kinds of things.
All kinds of things. And you can see, as he said, you can see the implications. But why is it so important now? Because in our children's lives, but in the next 10 years, by the time these freshmen are 24-year-old adults, let's take a moment to ponder where the technology, the emergence of artificial intelligence, the emergence of the metaverse, where that will be 10 years from now, when they're making decisions about family and about how they're going to live their lives. These questions will be profoundly important to them in a way that they were not for me, or you, or him, or you. They weren't as, what's the word for right in front of you? They weren't as immediate, as pressing, as, and maybe it's a blessing in some ways that they are this pressing, and that now is the time to look at these questions anew.
So you made it to the end of episode 2, which if you look at episode 1 and 2 of this video and podcast series, we have just completed a look back of the first lesson on philosophy. Basically, we defined what is school. We defined our terms freedom, school, and education. And we've kind of raised the level of concern of why we need these lessons. So we invite you to join us for episode 3, where we're going to actually dive into philosophy itself. The topic in episode 3, which is the beginning of the second lesson for these freshmen, will be epistemology. We're going to basically look at 2 questions. What do I know, and how do I know it? And if you really dig into those questions, as we will, I think the world needs those questions more than ever. So join us in episode 3, and God bless.